Good evening. I'm Mark Martin. American Pastor Saeed Abedini is back in prison in Iran, that after forcefully being taken from the hospital. Although he may be the most well-known, Pastor Saeed isn't the only Christian facing persecution in Iran. Even so, the church is still growing there. Charlene Aaron has the story.
Pastor Saeed is back in Iran's Raja Shah prison, one of the most brutal in Iran. Naghmeh Abedini, Pastor Saeed's wife, says this new development is very bad news.
Really, when I heard this news again at midnight, my time was, I felt like it was even worse than the initial call when I received that he was taken 2 years ago.
Pastor Saeed had been in the hospital the last few months. His condition was dramatically improving. He was given medicine, nutritional meals, and allowed visits with his family in Iran. Some of those family members were present when Saeed was beaten and taken back to prison. They say a guard mentioned the Iranian nuclear talks as a motive.
Imagine being an individual who is important, who talks between nations about a nuclear program. It's pretty unprecedented that would be the case. And that was picked up on by those who were watching this unfold at the hospital.
Pastor Saeed is serving an 8-year sentence on charges related to his faith. And he's not the only one. Persecution against Iranian Christians is increasing. In 2010, security police arrested 35-year-old Iranian Christian Farshid Fatah in a raid against house churches. He's serving a 6-year sentence in Iran's infamous Evin prison, where he's been beaten and abused. Still, there's a light in the darkness. David Yengnazar of Elam Ministries says other Christians see the treatment of prisoners like Saeed and Farshid, but the church still continues to grow.
Courage means that the church continues to grow. So it's really, although it's a story of suffering, there's also a story of growth in the church in Iran.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Jordan Sekulow from the American Center for Law and Justice joins us now with more. Jordan, how is Pastor Saeed's family handling the latest news?
You know, honestly, Mark, this is a situation, and Naghmeh Abedini, Pastor Saeed's wife, has been very honest, and she said, you know, it's not good. This was a situation, people may have noticed, we have not talked about Saeed publicly because he was going on almost 3 months being in a private hospital under guard, but in a much better situation than being in prison. And we didn't want to do anything that would undermine that or somehow it make him end up in prison because of being too harsh in the media or being too strong in the media, letting things kind of play out a bit. And now all of a sudden, and really out of nowhere, the hospital was stormed, and Saeed ends up now back in Raja Shah prison. Very tough on the family.
Well, what is the biggest concern for Pastor Saeed while he's in jail?
Naghmeh said, you know, after speaking with the family and seeing the amount of guards and how heavily armed they were, the brutality, and I do want to underscore that, this was a brutal arrest. It was not just, this is someone in a hospital. If they wanted to just take him back to prison, they could have done so without, he collapsed during this. This was a real beating that occurred in front of lots of people, in front of hospital staff, in front of Saeed's family that's in Iran. And so this is a situation, again, extremely brutal. His physical condition, not good. In fact, as Naghmeh explained after talking to the family, they were able to confirm that Saeed was back in the prison, that he was back up, that he was awake and alive, but that he felt like all of those medical conditions that were improving suddenly were rushing back. So again, a very negative and unfortunate situation.
Is the American government doing enough, Jordan, to try and free the pastor?
Well, this is interesting because it's one of those situations where we may need the United States government now more than ever. And I say that because one of the guards, Mark, when asked, mentioned the nuclear talks. Now, Saeed, of course, being an American citizen, if that is the case, then he has become what the United States has tried so hard, the government has tried so hard not to do, which is to make him into a pawn. We believe that he's been a pawn the entire time, that you can't really separate this issue in the eyes of the Iranian government, that if they've got an American in custody, they're going to use that, including at the nuclear talks. If that's the case, then he's got to be taken off the margins or the sidelines of the talks, and he's got to be a focus. And we have this unprecedented time, even though those talks may not be going great, where the United States is sitting down with Iran. They need to speak up and realize that, you know, the guards were saying this. These are not generals. These are guards who even are tying Saeed to the nuclear talk.
Wow. Well, Jordan Sekulow with the ACLJ, thank you so much for your insights, and thank you for staying on top of this, sir.
Thanks, Mark. I want to thank CBN for covering and just ask people to keep praying.